So hi everyone! For today's video, I will be discussing about the Presidential Decree 1006, or also known as the professionalization of teaching. So before this law was crafted or created, teaching was not considered as a profession. So it means that you don't have to be a licensed teacher to teach, or you're not required to take the board examination for this course. So even though people recognizes that becoming a teacher or having a degree in teaching requires years to finish and was not easy, it was still not highlighted as a profession. So before, people disregarded this profession even though there was a high demand for teachers before. That is why on January 1, 1997, the former president of the Philippines, Ferdinand E. Marcos, crafted and signed this decree to give recognition to the teachers having a vital role in the nation building. So, what really is Presidential Decree 1006? So, Presidential Decree 1006, as the definition says, it is the providing for the professionalization of teachers, regulating their practice in the Philippines and for other purposes. So, the key word here is the word professionalization. Professionalization of teachers means we are giving them the recognition or the authority to teach and be a licensed professionals. So, what is under Presidential Decree 1006? So it says, whereas all educational institutions shall be under the supervision of and subject to regulation by the state. So it means everything concerning about the education, the decisions about education, or the changes in education shall be under the state. That is why the state shall establish and maintain a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the goals of national development. So again, it is the state's responsibility to have a complete integrated system of education or a quality education. So maybe that's why we have the elementary, the secondary, the tertiary, and so on, so that students can really develop skills and attributes that can help for the goal of national development. In the pursuit of this objective, the Department of Education and Culture has adopted ways and means on overseeing all educational institutions in the country. So, this Department of Education and Culture is now known as Department of Education or DepEd. So, since it is the responsibility of the state to have a better quality and integrated system of education, they need a department to oversee all the institution, all educational institution of the country. So that is under Department of Education and Culture or the DepEd. The supervisory function of DAC has been primarily beamed towards ensuring that all educational institutions inculcate in the studentry love of the country, teach the duties of citizenship, and develop moral character, personal discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. So again, it is the responsibility of the DepEd or the Department of Education and Culture before to assure that all students become a good citizen with good character. So next is, whereas to implement these objectives, the institutions have relied upon their teachers. So to be able to really accomplish what was stated, or to really be able to develop these students to become a good citizens in this country, we have to recognize the vital roles of teachers. Because as we all know, the teachers are the ones with the direct are the one with direct contact with the students and are the one who are teaching them. Whereas this accounts to the tremendous growth of teaching population, comprising in the civil service sector alone, more than 300,000 teachers are deployed all over the country. So to ensure that the immediacy and urgency for teacher recruitment, qualitative requirements are not overlooked. It means that even though we need more teachers and there is a high demand for teachers, we should still make sure and check that we are receiving quality requirements. That is why it has become necessary to regulate teaching profession. So like what I have said earlier, even though teaching requires a number of years of study, it is the only course that is not yet considered as a profession. Lastly, in the recognition of the vital role of teachers in the nation building, it is imperative that they be considered as professionals and teaching be considered as a profession. So, to be able to achieve our goals in nation building, we need to really first recognize the people who will be implementing or who will be teaching these, and that are the teachers. Now, therefore, Ferdinand E. Marcos, the President of the Philippines, by virtue of the powers vested in me by the Constitution, do hereby decree and order. In Section 1, it basically just shows us the title of the decree, and that is the Decree Professionalizing Teaching. So in Section 2, the Declaration of Policy, where it hereby declared that the teacher education shall be given primary concern and attention by the government. So in Section 3, the definition of terms, where teaching refers to the profession primarily concerned with the classroom instruction. And in here, teachers are defined as all persons engaged in teaching. And in C, board refers to the National Board for Teachers duly constituted under this decree. In Section 4 is the creation of the National Board for Teachers. So, in this section, there is hereby created a National Board for Teachers, hereinafter called the Board, to be composed of the following. So, as you can see at the table, so that is the composition of the board. So, first is the Secretary of Education and Culture, in which this is Madam Secretary Leonor Briones, and the co-chairman is the Chairman, Civil Service Commission, and we have the members, the Commissioner, Professional Regulation Commissions, and fourth is the 2 members representing the private sector to be appointed by the President. In Section 5 is the powers and duties. The board shall have the following powers and duties. So, A. Appoint a set of examiners for every examination who will determine and prepare the contents of the board examination for the teachers. So again, as what I have mentioned, this is the duty of National Board for Teacher to determine and prepare the content of the examination. B. Determine and fix the places and dates of examination
appoint supervisors and room examiners from among the employees of the government. So basically here, the board or the one who will decides when will be the date of examination, where will be the place of examination, who approves application to take examination, and the one who approves the release of examination results. So let's proceed to see. Look from time to time into the conditions affecting the practice of the teaching profession. So it is also their responsibilities to ensure that quality education is provided and that professional standards and ethics are maintained. So in D, issue, suspend, revoke, replace, or reissue professional teacher certificate and administer oaths. So the board or the one who can issue professional teacher certificates, and they also have the right to suspend or revoke it. But it depends on what violation the teacher has done. And they are the one who replace or reissue it. For example, if you have lost it or you want to renew your professional teacher's certificate. So let's proceed in E. They are the one who appoint, subjects to the provisions of existing laws, such officials and employees as are necessary in the effective performance of its functions and responsibilities, prescribe their duties and fix their compensation. So they really need to perform their duties very well. So next is prescribe and collect examination and other fees as it may deem proper, and promulgate rules and regulations and exercise such other powers, functions, and duties as may be necessary to carry into effect the purpose of this decree. So let us proceed in section 6, qualification requirements for examination applicants. So in here, no applicant shall be admitted to take the examination unless on the date of filling of the application he shall have complied with the following requirements. So first, the applicant must be a citizen of the Philippines. Next is you must have a good moral character. So of course, no, since teachers are the one who has a great influence to students also. So you must have a good moral character because we wanted to produce a good citizens also. And next is he is free of any physical and mental defect. And D, he should possess the following minimum educational qualifications. So first, for teachers in the kindergarten and elementary grades, bachelor's degree in elementary education or BSEED or its equivalent. For secondary teachers, you must have a bachelor's degree or its equivalent with a major and minor. So if ever, for example, you're not an education graduate, you are a BS Stat graduate or a BS Math graduate, and you decided that you wanted to teach. So for you to become a licensed teacher, you must at least take 18 units in professional education. So you might be like wondering why are there not education related graduates that are LET passers also. So why? So the reason is they took the professional education subjects. So when we say professional education subjects, these are the child and adolescents, the teaching profession, and so on. So for number 3, for teachers of secondary vocational and 2-year technical courses, you need to have a bachelor's degree in the field of specialization with at least 18 units in professional education. So it's the same. So for example, if you wanted to teach in TESDA but you are not an education graduate, then you can take the 18 units in professional education. So let us proceed on section 7, appointment of examiners. So the board shall appoint a set of examiners for every examination. The examiner shall receive a compensation provided in addition to salary. So the compensation that will be given or will be received by every examiners are not less than 5,000 and not more than 18,000. So section 8, the scope of the examination. So in the examination, it consists of written test, and the scope will be determined by the board and will take consideration to the teaching plan of the schools that are legally constituted in the Philippines. Moving forward to section 9, ratings in the examination. So if you wanted to successfully pass the examination, you must have obtained a general average of at least 70% in all subjects and not below 50% in any subject. So for example, you are a BEED student and you are taking the examination. So in the BEED exam, there are two parts, the general education and the professional education. So you must not have any grade below 50% in this two subject. So if you have a 50 below grade, like let's say in professional education, even if you have like above 50% grade in general education, it will not still be considered as a passed. So another example is if you are a BS Ed student taking the examination. So in BS Ed, there are three parts: the Gen Ed, professional education, and your major. So like what I've said, if you have a 50% below grade, it will not be considered as a pass even if you have above 50% to professional education or to your major. So moving forward to section 10, the report of the results of the examination. So in this section, the examiner shall report the ratings obtained by each candidate to the board within 550 days after the last day of the examination, unless it is extended by the board. So I guess this will be one of the most stressful days of the people who are taking the LET examination, because you don't know what will be the result, but let's just think positive. So section 11, the issuance of certificates. So the board may consider their certificates of rating as certificates of eligibility or issue an entirely new certificates upon registration of the teacher and payment of the corresponding fees. So, as a proof that you are now a licensed teacher, you will be given a certificate that you passed the examination. Also, your rating will be given to you. But upon getting your certificates, you must pay the corresponding fees also. So let's move on to section 12, registration. Registration shall evidence that the registrant is entitled to all the rights and privileges of a professional teacher until and unless the certificate is suspended or cancelled by the board for just cause. So if you wanted to be titled as a professional teacher, of course you need to first register so that you can renew your license every 3 years, because every 3 years your license expires. In section 13, the reissuance of revoked certificates and replacement of lost certificates. So in this section, a new certificate to replace a lost, destroyed, or mutilated certificate may be issued subject to the rules of the board. So let's say for example, you lost your license and you can still get another one, but of course it is a long process because you need to pay unnecessary fees, you need to go to a lawyer to file affidavit of loss and so on. So in section 14, registration by reciprocity. So in this section, this is more like on the foreigner teachers who wanted to teach in the Philippines but finished their education course in other country and has already a license. So in order to do so, they need to let it re-evaluated by the people in the Philippines such as the DepEd, the DFA and all to see if the license are valid, and also to make sure that the requirement for registration in said foreign countries are substantially the same as those required and contemplated by this decree. So, the applicant shall submit competent and conclusive documentary evidence confirmed by the Department of Foreign Affairs showing that his country's existing laws permit citizens of the Philippines to practice teaching profession under the rules and regulations governing citizens thereof. So in section 15, prohibition. So no person shall engage in teaching and or act as a teacher as defined in this decree unless he is a holder of a professional teacher certificate or is considered a professional teacher under this decree. So again, you have no right to teach unless you are a holder of a professional teacher certificate. So section 16, penal provision. So for instance, if you are caught falsifying your license, a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos nor more than 5,000 pesos with subsidiary imprisonment, or to suffer an imprisonment of not less than 6 months nor more than 2 years. So let us proceed to section 17, repealing clause. All acts, decrees, executive orders, administrative orders, rules and regulation or parts thereof inconsistent with the provision of this decree are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. And in section 18, separability clause, in case any provision of this decree or any portion thereof is declared unconstitutional by a competent court, other provisions shall not be affected thereby. And lastly, in section 9, effectivity, this decree shall take effect on January 1, 1977.